The story that you are about to hear is a compilation of documented true facts, featuring characters, events, or places that has played a role in shaping history. Please sit back and listen as I recite this narrative for you. On December 28, 1956, the Grimes sisters, Barbara, 15 years old, and Patricia, 13 years old, presumably took the bus from their McKinley Park home to Brighton Park to see the 1956 Elvis Presley movie, Love Me Tender, at the now closed Brighton Theatre in 4223 South Archer Avenue. But after they left the house that night, their family never saw them alive again. A school friend of Patricia, Dorothy Weinert, informed investigators that she had been seated behind the girls with her own younger sister during the film, although they had left the theater at the intermission of the double feature that night around 9:30 p.m. On their way out, they saw the Grimes sister in line at the concession stand to get more popcorn. Based on this information, the Grimes sisters would have been home at approximately 11:45 p.m. And when the sisters were not home by midnight, their mother, Loretta, sent their older sister Theresa and brother Joey to wait by the bus stop for their arrival. After 3 successive buses had driven by without their sisters, both siblings returned home. A missing person report was filed at 2:15 a.m. with the Chicago Police Department. The disappearance of the Grimes sisters sparked one of the largest missing person cases in the history of Cook County. Nearly everyone in Chicago looked for the sisters. Hundreds of police officers were assigned full-time. Cook County officers were assisted by colleagues from surrounding suburbs, and a task force devoted solely to locating the sisters was formed, with the ground search initiated on December 29 by volunteers. Police conducted door-to-door canvassing throughout Brighton Park, and numerous canals and rivers were dredged. In addition, more than 15,000 flyers were distributed to local homes, and parishioners of the Sisters Church offered a $1,000 reward for information leading to their whereabouts. As a result of this coordinated investigation, 300,000 people would be questioned, with some 2,000 individuals subjected to serious interrogation pertaining to their potential culpability. Several teenagers who had been at the Brighton Theatre on December 28 did inform investigators they had seen the sisters conversing with, then entering a car driven by a young man whose physical appearance had been similar to that of Elvis Presley. The vehicle described by these eyewitnesses was consistently described as being a Mercury model. The case quickly began to garner national attention, especially when Elvis heard about the girls and how they turned up missing after seeing his movie. He pleaded for them to come home on national radio. Sadly, on January 22, 1957, following a rapid thaw of recent snowfall, a man named Leonard Prescott discovered the girls' nude bodies near Willow Springs, Illinois. He thought he saw 2 mannequins on the other side of the guardrail. As he approached his house, he started doubting what he had seen. So, he went back to his house to get his wife, then came back and discovered the mannequins were actually the nude, frozen bodies of the Grimes sisters. And the Prescotts immediately reported their findings to the Willow Springs Police Department. The girls' bodies lay upon a flat horizontal section of snow-covered ground directly behind the guardrail, which extended for just 10 feet before the incline of the embankment of Devil's Creek. Barbara lay on her left side, with her legs drawn slightly up toward her torso. Patricia lay on her back, with her body covering her sister's head and her own head turned sharply to the right. It is believed the sisters had most likely been driven to this location in a car, with their bodies then being dragged or lifted out of the vehicle, then placed or thrown behind the guardrail. 3 wounds resembling those typically inflicted by ice picks were discovered upon Barbara's chest, and injuries resembling blunt force trauma were visible upon her face and head, whereas numerous injuries resembling bruises were also discovered upon Patricia's face and body. The girl's father, Joseph Grimes, was driven to the crime scene to formally identify both bodies. After Joseph's initial positive identification of the bodies, over 160 police officers from several suburban Chicago police departments, assisted by numerous local volunteers, conducted a search of the crime scene with the additional assistance of the forest preservers. This search uncovered little or no real evidence linked to the crime, and the search itself would later be severely criticized due to those organizing the search allowing untrained individuals to trample over any evidence which may have been at the location. Authorities later arrested a man named Edward Bennie Bedwell after his co-workers reportedly saw him with the girls after they went missing. Bedwell was interrogated by authorities in a motel room for almost 3 days before he finally confessed to the murders. He wrote and signed a confession, but many felt it wasn't true as he was illiterate and mentally challenged. However, autopsy reports contradicted the falsified confession. Bedwell claimed that he and the girls went to various places for several weeks after their disappearances. The official death certificates of both Barbara and Patricia would list their cause of death as being murdered with a secondary shock due to exposure to cold temperatures, and that the sisters had died within 4 hours of their disappearances. Bedwell later recanted his confession, stating that he had been remanded for 3 days and was told that if he confessed, they would let him go. Bedwell had also clocked in at another of his jobs at Ajax Consolidated Company, which placed him at work when the girls were likely abducted. Autopsy reports showed that Barbara had wounds that looked like rodent bites and others that were puncture wounds. She also had blunt force trauma to her face and head. The pathologists believed she had also had intercourse around the time of her death. Patricia had bruises to her face and body. There were no drugs, alcohol, or poison in their systems, and their stomach contents were found to include popcorn and the dinner they had eaten on December 28, indicating that they had died approximately 5 hours after leaving the movie theater. However, the 3 independent pathologists who completed their autopsies could not agree on the cause or time of death. Walter Krantz was a steam feeder and self-declared sidekick who experienced a vision of the 2 girls after a night of drinking. The 53-year-old called the police complaint room on the 15th of January and told an operator that the sisters were dead and their bodies could be found in Lyons Township. Krantz wouldn't give his name to the operator, but the call was traced to near his home. Krantz's vision of the girls was near to the truth, and when their bodies were found a week later, they were only around a mile away from his estimation. The police also suspected him for a ransom note which had been sent to Loretta Grimes. Handwriting experts confirmed that he may have written the note, but Krantz denied involvement during numerous interrogations. He was eventually released without charge. Max Flagg was a 17-year-old also under suspicion for the sisters' murders. Due to his age and Illinois laws, he was not allowed to undertake a polygraph test. However, Captain Ralph Petacchio convinced Flagg to do it anyway. He subsequently confessed to the murders, but because the test wasn't legal, he could not be charged. He was released due to a lack of evidence but was later jailed for the murder of another young woman. Loretta Grimes applauded police efforts and cited that she did not agree with age restrictions on polygraph tests. In May 1957, Loretta Grimes received an anonymous telephone call from an individual who claimed to have undressed and killed her daughters. Although the Grimes family had received numerous hoax phone calls following the girls' disappearance, this particular caller, having ridiculed police efforts to affix blame upon suspects such as Edward Bedwell, ended his phone call with information indicating he may indeed have been the perpetrator. "I know something about your little girl that no one else knows. not even the police. The smallest girl's toes were crossed at the feet. This caller then laughed before terminating the call. 1 year after the murder of her daughters, Loretta Grimes publicly stated her conviction her daughters had been murdered by an individual they had known, stating that although the weather had been bitterly cold on the night of their abduction, Barbara and Patricia would never have entered a vehicle driven by an individual unknown to them, regardless of any discomfort. In 2013, a retired West Chicago police officer named Raymond Johnson decided to research the case and found a new possible suspect. Charles Leroy Melquist, who was a self-confessed child killer. Melquist had been convicted of the September 1958 murder of a 15-year-old girl named Bonnie Leigh Scott, whom he had known prior to her murder, and whose decapitated body had been found 2 months after her disappearance, less than 10 miles from where the Grimes sisters' bodies had been discovered. Following the discovery of Scott's body, investigators had noted similarities in this murder and body disposal, and that of the Grimes sisters. Nonetheless, he was never questioned as to his potential culpability in the Grimes sisters' murders, as his attorney had forbidden him to be subject to questioning. Melquist was never charged with his alleged involvement in the deaths of the Grimes sisters. He died in 2010. Officially, the murders of the Grimes sisters remain unsolved, although this is an open case.
Hey everyone! I just wanted to express how grateful I am that you took the time to listen to my narration. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I am Twysted Mind and please enjoy the rest of your day. Salamat!